What happens when Hollywood's most devout Christian actor meets daytime television's most controversial host? Jonathan Roumie thought he was walking into a routine promotional appearance on The View. But what unfolded was an explosive confrontation that had producers scrambling and security on high alert. This wasn't just another celebrity interview gone wrong. This was a masterclass in how personal faith can become a battlefield on live television. Make sure to subscribe and drop a comment because this story gets more intense with every passing minute. Jonathan Roumie adjusted his cross necklace as he walked onto the View set, flashing his trademark gentle smile to the studio audience. The applause was warm, welcoming even, but there was something in Joy Behar's eyes that immediately put him on edge. He'd done hundreds of faith-based interviews, faced down skeptics and critics, but something about Joy's expression told him this wasn't going to be the respectful discussion his publicist had promised. "Welcome back to The View. I'm Joy Behar," she began, her voice carrying that familiar edge that regular viewers knew meant trouble. "We're here with Jonathan Roumie, star of the hit series The Chosen. And Jonathan, I have to say, I've been looking forward to this conversation for a very long time." Jonathan settled into his chair, that quiet confidence of a man secure in his faith radiating from every gesture. "Thanks for having me, Joy. Always good to be here with you ladies." "Oh, is it though?" Joy's smile was sharp, predatory. "Because I seem to remember you having some pretty strong opinions about people who question religious narratives in entertainment. Something about Hollywood needing more faith-based content." The audience shifted uncomfortably. This wasn't the usual playful banter they expected from celebrity interviews about popular TV shows. Jonathan's hand instinctively moved to his cross necklace, but he kept his composure. "I think you might be taking something out of context there, Joy. I simply believe there's room for all kinds of stories, including those that speak to people's faith." "Am I, though?" Joy shuffled through her papers with theatrical precision. "Because I have the quote right here. Quote, Hollywood has lost touch with the millions of Americans who find meaning and purpose in their faith. We need more authentic representations of belief, not just stereotypes and mockery." Ring any bells? Jonathan leaned forward, his voice steady but firm. "That wasn't directed at anyone specific, Joy, and frankly, I stand by it. There's a difference between honest storytelling and dismissing people's deeply held beliefs." "Dismissing people's beliefs," Joy repeated, her voice dripping with mock concern. "That's rich coming from someone who's made a career out of playing a character that half the world doesn't even believe existed. Tell me, Jonathan, when exactly did you become the spokesperson for persecuted Christians in Hollywood?" The temperature in the studio seemed to drop several degrees. Jonathan's co-hosts, Whoopi Goldberg and the others, exchanged glances that screamed discomfort. This was supposed to be a lighthearted promotional segment about a popular streaming series, not a theological ambush. "I never claimed to be anyone's spokesperson," Jonathan replied, his calm demeanor showing the first signs of strain. "But I do know what it's like to be dismissed or ridiculed for your faith in this industry. I know what it's like to be told your beliefs are outdated or irrelevant. The show resonates with people because it treats faith with respect, not contempt." Joy's eyes flashed with something that looked suspiciously like delight. "Respect? That's what you call it? You mean like the respect you show for historical accuracy when you're depicting events that have zero archaeological evidence? Or the respect you show for other religions when you promote Christianity as the only truth?" Jonathan's jaw tightened slightly, his fingers unconsciously gripping his cross necklace. "Joy, The Chosen is based on the Gospels, and we've worked with biblical scholars to ensure accuracy. But more importantly, we're not attacking anyone else's beliefs. We're simply telling our story with the same respect that any other faith-based narrative deserves." "Your story?" Joy laughed, that harsh sound that was becoming more familiar by the minute. "You mean a story that's been used to justify centuries of oppression, wars, and discrimination? The story that tells people they're sinners who need saving? That story." The studio audience was completely silent now, the tension so thick you could cut it with a knife. Whoopi tried to interject. "Maybe we should take a quick break," but Joy waved her off dismissively.
No.
"I want to hear this," Joy said, leaning back in her chair with a smug expression. "Please, Jonathan, enlighten us." Tell us how your little TV show is saving Hollywood from its godless ways. Should we all just start making Bible movies? Maybe we should discuss whether Noah's Ark was big enough for all those animals. Jonathan's hands clenched slightly on the table, his knuckles white as he gripped his cross necklace tighter. You know what, Joy? You're proving my point right now. You're not interested in having a conversation about faith or storytelling. You're interested in mocking beliefs that billions of people hold sacred. You're interested in making me look foolish because you can't stand that a show about Jesus is successful. What I can't stand is ignorance. Joy snapped, all pretense of civility gone. What I can't stand is grown adults believing in fairy tales and then expecting the rest of us to take them seriously. You want to talk about faith? Let's talk about the faith it takes to believe that a virgin gave birth, that dead people come back to life, that water turns into wine. Jonathan's face went pale, then flushed with controlled anger. Those aren't fairy tales to me, Joy. They're not fairy tales to the millions of people who watch our show. They're sacred truths that have guided humanity for 2,000 years. And the fact that you can sit there and mock them so casually shows exactly the kind of intolerance I was talking about. Joy laughed, that harsh sound echoing through the studio. Intolerance? You mean like the intolerance your religion has shown to women, to gay people, to anyone who doesn't fit into your narrow worldview? You want to talk about intolerance? My faith teaches love, compassion, and forgiveness. Jonathan's voice was rising now, his famous calm starting to crack. But what you're doing right now, this is intolerance. This is bigotry. This is exactly the kind of anti-religious hatred that drives people away from honest dialogue about faith and spirituality. Joy's eyes gleamed with satisfaction. Anti-religious hatred? That's what you call asking tough questions? That's what you call holding religious claims up to scrutiny? Maybe the problem isn't that I'm intolerant, Jonathan. Maybe the problem is that your beliefs can't stand up to basic logical examination. The studio went dead silent. Jonathan's face went from pale to red with barely contained fury. Basic logical examination? He whispered, his voice dangerously quiet. Joy, you're not examining anything. You're mocking. You're ridiculing. You're doing exactly what bullies do when they can't understand something beautiful and meaningful. Beautiful and meaningful? Joy's voice was shrill now, her composure completely abandoned. You mean like the beauty of telling people they're going to hell if they don't believe what you believe? The meaning found in threatening eternal damnation? Come on, Jonathan. Let's talk about the real Jesus, the one who supposedly said love your neighbor, but whose followers have been killing their neighbors for centuries. Jonathan stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. You know what? This is exactly what I'm talking about. You can't separate faith from the worst examples of humanity. You can't see past your own prejudices to understand what millions of people find in their relationship with God. Sit down, Jonathan, Joy said, her voice cold and commanding. We're not done here. I want to hear you defend the Crusades. I want to hear you defend the Inquisition. I want to hear you defend every priest who's abused children while claiming to represent your loving God. Yeah, we are done, Jonathan replied, but he remained standing, his hands shaking with rage. This isn't an interview about The Chosen. This isn't even a discussion about faith in entertainment. This is a hate-filled attack on Christianity itself, and I'm not going to sit here and let you blaspheme everything I hold sacred for your entertainment. The cameras captured every moment of the escalating confrontation. The producers in the control room frantically trying to figure out how to handle what was becoming a public relations nightmare. This was live television at its most unpredictable, and nobody knew how to stop the runaway train Joy had started. Joy's eyes gleamed with malicious satisfaction as she watched Jonathan's Christ-like composure finally crumble. She had him exactly where she wanted him, and she wasn't about to let him escape with his dignity intact. Oh, so now you're going to run away? That's very Christian of you, Jonathan. Very turn the other cheek. Though I guess that only applies when it's convenient, right? Jonathan's fists clenched tighter, his cross necklace catching the studio lights as his chest rose and fell with barely controlled anger. I'm not running from anything, Joy. I'm choosing not to participate in your anti-Christian circus. This isn't journalism. This is persecution. My circus. Joy laughed, that same harsh sound that was beginning to grate on everyone's nerves. You came on my show, Jonathan. You're a guest in my house. And if you can't handle having your precious beliefs questioned, maybe you shouldn't be, in the public, promoting religious propaganda. Whoopi tried again to intervene, her voice strained with obvious discomfort. Joy, maybe we should move on to talking about Jonathan's other projects. No, Whoopi, Joy said without taking her eyes off Jonathan. I think our audience deserves to know who they're really dealing with here. Jonathan wants to talk about faith and religious freedom, so let's talk about them. Let's talk about how his religion has oppressed women for centuries. Let's talk about how it's been used to justify slavery, genocide, and hatred. Jonathan slowly sat back down, his jaw set in a hard line, his hand never leaving his cross. Fine, let's talk. But let's keep it honest, Joy. Something you seem to struggle with when it comes to faith. Honest. Joy's voice pitched higher, her face flushing red. You want honest? Honest is admitting that you're nothing but a privileged actor who's made millions pretending to be the son of a god that doesn't exist. Honest is acknowledging that you're selling false hope to desperate people. You think I'm selling false hope? Jonathan's voice was dangerously quiet now, the kind of controlled fury that anyone who knew him would recognize as his breaking point. You think the peace that millions of people find in their faith is false? You think the comfort that grieving families find in believing their loved ones are in heaven is worthless? Joy waved her hand dismissively, her wedding ring catching the light as she gestured mockingly. Oh, please. The comfort of delusion doesn't make it true, Jonathan. Just because something makes people feel better doesn't mean we should pretend it's real. Santa Claus makes children feel better too, but we don't build our entire worldview around him. Santa Claus. Jonathan's voice exploded with incredulity, his calm finally shattered completely. Did you just compare my savior to Santa Claus? Did you just mock the resurrection of Jesus Christ on national television? The audience gasped audibly. Several people in the front row looked genuinely shocked, their hands covering their mouths in disbelief. This had crossed every line of decency and respect, and everyone knew it. Jonathan leaned forward, his voice dropping to that dangerous whisper that conveyed more fury than any shout ever could. You know what's truly sad, Joy? You've just shown millions of viewers exactly what religious intolerance looks like. You've just demonstrated the very bigotry that drives people away from honest dialogue about faith and spirituality. Bigotry? Joy laughed again, but there was less confidence in it now, a tremor in her voice that hadn't been there before. I'm not the bigot here, sweetheart. I'm just asking questions that your fairy tale can't answer. Don't call me sweetheart, Jonathan said, his voice like ice. And yes, you're being a bigot. You're being exactly what's wrong with secular Hollywood's attitude toward faith. You're a bully with a platform, using your position to attack what you don't understand. Joy's face flushed deeper red. A bully? I'm a bully? That's rich coming from someone who represents a religion that's bullied entire civilizations into submission. At least I'm not threatening people with eternal hellfire if they don't agree with me. There it is again, Jonathan said, shaking his head in disgust. You can't make your point without attacking the faith itself. You can't win an argument on merit, so you drag up every historical atrocity and blame them on Jesus Christ. You're pathetic, Joy. And you're exactly why people think Hollywood hates Christians. I'm pathetic? Joy's voice was shrill now, her professional mask completely shattered. I'm not the one who built a career playing dress-up as an imaginary deity. I'm not the one who thinks reciting ancient texts makes me wise. And I'm not the one who believes in talking snakes and magical fruit trees. And I'm not the one who thinks being cruel makes me enlightened. Jonathan fired back, standing up again with such force that his chair nearly toppled. You sit here every day, Joy, and you poison the well of discourse. You take people's most sacred beliefs and turn them into punchlines. You take the faith that sustains millions of people and make it part of your comedy routine. You're not progressive, Joy. You're just mean. Joy stood up now, matching Jonathan's movement, her face contorted with rage. You don't know what you're talking about. I've done more for human rights, for women's equality, for social justice than your religion has done in its entire bloody history. I use my platform to fight for what's right. By doing what? Jonathan challenged, his voice echoing through the silent studio. By attacking people's faith? By mocking their beliefs? By making them feel ashamed for finding hope in something greater than themselves? You're not fighting for justice, Joy. You're fighting against the very thing that taught the world about love, forgiveness, and redemption. Love and forgiveness. Joy's voice was getting more desperate now, her hands gesturing wildly. That's what you call a religion that tells gay people they're abominations? That's what you call a faith that subjugates women and protects predators? Wake up, Jonathan. Your Jesus may have preached love, but his followers have been practicing hate for 2,000 years. And you're practicing hate right now, Jonathan said, his voice cutting through her hysteria like a blade. Look at what you're doing, Joy. Look around the studio. You ambushed me. You brought me here under false pretenses to promote a show, and instead you've spent the last 10 minutes attacking my faith, my beliefs, my savior. And you're calling me the hateful one? The silence in the studio was deafening. Even the crew members had stopped what they were doing to watch this unprecedented meltdown unfold before their eyes. Whoopi made one final, desperate attempt at damage control. Maybe we should really take that break now. I think everyone needs to cool down. No, Joy said, her voice sharp and brittle. We're going to finish this conversation. Jonathan came here to promote his religious propaganda, and I think our audience deserves to know exactly what kind of dangerous delusion they're being asked to support. Jonathan's laugh was bitter, devoid of any warmth. You really don't get it, do you? You think this is about me? This is about you, Joy. This is about how you've turned religious discourse into a blood sport. This is about how you've made it impossible for people of faith to exist in public spaces without being mocked and ridiculed. People of faith? Joy's voice was mocking, dripping with contempt. You mean people who reject science, who deny evolution, who think the Earth is 6,000 years old? Yeah, maybe they should be mocked. Maybe it's time we stopped pretending that ignorance deserves respect just because it's wrapped in religious language. The studio went completely silent. Jonathan's face went white, then red, then white again. When he spoke, his voice was so quiet that the microphones barely picked it up, but every word carried the weight of absolute moral authority. You know what, Joy? You just proved everything I've been saying about Hollywood's hostility toward faith. You're not interested in dialogue. You're not interested in understanding. You're interested in destroying anyone who doesn't share your worldview. You're interested in winning at any cost, even if it means trampling on the most sacred beliefs of millions of Americans. I'm interested in the truth, Joy said, but her voice lacked conviction now, the fire beginning to dim as she realized how far she had gone. No, you're not, Jonathan said, his voice gaining strength as he prepared to deliver his final blow. You're interested in your version of the truth. You're interested in silencing voices that challenge your secular orthodoxy. You're interested in being the smartest person in the room, even if it means being the cruelest.